Hello and welcome back to CS38 Racing, and we are here to review MotoGP 25. It's been about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks since the game's been out. We've had an update. Let's talk about the new modes in the game, the race-off game modes, as well as the physics. There's been a bit of an overhaul to the physics. Visually, this game is sounding amazing. So let's jump in, see if you're interested in getting this game or not. Okay, so first of all, let's look into game modes. So in game modes, we still have pretty much the classic game mode of your GP Academy, your tutorial, your career mode, as well as race off, which integrates into career mode, as well as MotoGP Academy, which I still think is a really good way if you're new to the MotoGP series to acclimatize yourself to what's happening. It gives you a bit of a sector by sector rundown of each track. Career modes have a little bit of an overhaul. We've got development, rivalry, and prestige goals to work towards within your career mode, which I think is a good way of revamping the career mode a little bit. I do wish that we still had the ability to create our own team. That would be cool, particularly in MotoGP, with there being a lot of rumors around different bikes entering, but as you can see, it visually looks better in career mode. Race off. So race off is an interesting aspect to the game. We've got flat track, motard, and mini moto style. So in the trailer, it very much talked about how these game modes were going to be integrated into your career mode, where you're going to be using them to train and to, I guess I haven't done it yet in career mode yet, but the career mode is coming. It gets you to train, maybe it gives you some points towards development, I'm not too sure, but they do have their own distinct physics, and I think it is very fun to learn those physics. I actually find that they quite well correspond to the physics that you feel, particularly in the Moto3 bikes in the wet, so stay tuned for that coming up in the Moto3 career mode for GP25. But I think it's an awesome addition to the game. It's fun, it's great. I think if we can get this to the online, being online races will be very fun. I could see a lot of people having lots of fun, particularly with these mini motos. These are my favorite addition to the game. Does take a little bit of getting used to the physics. Camera angles can be a bit cool because they're different and definitely designed primarily for the main bikes. But again, they're fun. It would be good if we could get a few more tracks. We've only got 2 variations per motard, flat track, and mini moto. So it would be good to see that, but overall, I think this is a good addition to the game, and hopefully is something that you would keep coming back to and doesn't just end up being rather gimmicky. But in that being said, it would have been nice to have a historic mode. I think everyone that is a GP fan is quite interested in being able to go back and play old generations of bikes. Now, arcade mode. This is something that will drastically change your experience in MotoGP. If you're completely new, you basically woke up this morning and have never heard of MotoGP and want to play the MotoGP game and get involved, arcade mode is for you. The grip, the feeling in this is phenomenal. You can basically set up the bike so that it changes gears, the ride height device is automatic, and that everything works as smoothly as possible. And I've seen in some videos there are cases where people are getting 5 or 6 seconds quicker than being on pro physics. So if you don't know anything about bike racing or have any semblance of an understanding of how the bike handles across different bike sims, I would recommend arcade mode. Though do keep in mind it's something that you would use at the very start and wean yourself off, because otherwise your expectations are going to be very, very high, expecting that you could absolutely ace the likes of Marc Marquez on a Yamaha when he was on the Ducati. But with that being said, let's jump into physics based on the pro setting for the different categories. So Moto3, it's very fun, it's very light, it's kind of a more refined package than what you got in the previous GP game. Yeah, it still feels sort of spongy for me, for my preference. In the braking, I am using a PlayStation 5 controller and it is wired only because, for whatever reason, if it's Bluetooth, I get connectivity issues, and also there's no rumble or anything through that. That is something that even, this is post-update as well, that I do find is a little bit disappointing about the GP game, is the lack of feeling on the brakes, because you can basically hold the brake and feel like you're not going to go down. which makes it a little bit difficult to gauge where that line is and where you have to do it. But for Moto 3, look, it's very fun. You get a good sense of speed, a good sense of agility, and the ability to sort of pick lines and prioritize mid-corner speed and slipstreaming, as is the case with the Moto 3 races. With that being said, I think it would be a very enjoyable career mode to jump straight into. Also, if you're new to the game, Moto 3 is an excellent starting point for understanding the physics, because they handle similar between Moto 3, Moto 2 and GP, so it's a good starting point. Lots of fun. I'm very much looking forward to playing career mode in this, and I like that it wasn't too long for them to update the liveries for the teams and all their fairings and everything about a week into the game being released. Although, begs the question, why not just release the game a week later and have everything all completed? But anyway, very good fun in Moto 3. Let's jump over to Moto 2. Moto 2 is also a very fun game mode. It's one of my favorites. For whatever reason, my riding style seems to really work with Moto 2. That was also in the previous GP game and the following game before that. Something about the Moto 2s and the characteristics just seem to work for me. The prioritizing the smooth throttle delivery because you don't have the traction control. Engine brake is there, though running it at a minimal is okay. Adaptive AI, that is something that is a little bit of a concern, because I'm playing with adaptive AI in this footage here, and as you can see, I basically rode around the whole outside of the field into Southern Loop, which isn't really that realistic, but fantastic looking on camera and for engagement, I guess. So hopefully with more races, it'll sort of build that data up about how I ride, my skill level, and make it more engaging. But overall, Moto 2 feels good. It doesn't feel like it wants to step out and kill you every time you put on the accelerator, although I would say you can't just be on-off and play it like it was on a keyboard. You need to be smooth with those inputs, throttle and brake, as you do in MotoGP as well. There is a little bit of a weird issue, which I do apologize for, in the audio, which whenever you tap another rider or make a little bit of a collision, it absolutely peaks the audio, and I need to try and figure that out. So I do apologize for that. But overall, very enjoyable experience. The Moto 2s feel light, fun, airy. The only thing I don't really like about this game is it does feel quite floaty in the braking, and that's across all classes. Kind of feels like you can come into the corner a little bit quicker, jab the brake, and be able to pivot. And the AI really love to take advantage of that into the corners in the braking zone as well. So let's jump over to the big dogs, MotoGP. So with MotoGP, as I was just saying before, I do feel that this game is a more polished version of the physics in MotoGP 24. Although with 24, the bikes feel considerably heavier. They feel almost in some cases like the bike just doesn't want to turn. And in this case, the bike feels a lot more light, it feels airy. Sometimes though, and this is my personal preference, it does feel a little bit spongy in the braking. You feel like you've got the input on, but it's just sort of gliding and coasting. Yeah, I guess it's just a little bit of adjustment to it, and I think that's a big part of MotoGP games, is that it's a MotoGP game, it's a consumer product, it is there for enjoyment for lots of people across the spectrum on where they watch motorbike racing, what they enjoy, who they like, their favorite rider, all that kind of stuff. So it's not a full-blown sim. I do think that you can get other games out there like GP Bikes that is a lot stronger at giving you that realistic experience, and that is a steep learning curve. Even myself, we paid about 20 hours of that game. Still haven't fully got my head around GP Bikes, but it is very fun. But then of course the big draw card of MotoGP and games like Ride 5 is they're visually very good. They're very nice to look at, they look very modern, the riders look very sleek, and everything looks nice, shiny and polished, whereas in GP Bikes it's not so much that, whereas the emphasis is put on the understanding and the physics of the bike handling itself as well. So that is something that you would need to keep in mind with GP25. But with that being said, I think it all comes down again to smooth inputs. The smoother you are with the inputs, whether that be accelerator or braking, as we can get completely barged by Marquez there. Let's give some back. It is about the smooth inputs allow you to be able to carry that corner speed a little bit better. In some instances, the AI is very good at wanting to dive down the inside of you and basically make the early part of the corner hell, but then they sit up in the middle part of the corner and you're able to undercut. So I do think there are pros and cons to how the physics are in the game. Overall, I think it's a step in the right direction. It makes it a bit more engaging in pro physics anyway for players that haven't played before and they want to get some sense of experience with that, and to gain a level of confidence, I suppose, is what it comes down to with GP24. It took a long time for me anyway to get to a point where I felt confident with where the inputs were, where the bike was, and I did do some control adjustment. I have not done that yet in MotoGP 25, which I may need to do. Also, following up on that, I am not sure from what I've seen in the menus, I haven't seen anything to do with the calibration for steering yet, or gyroscopic steering, which I have had some people comment on a few shorts about, so I'm not too sure about that one at the time of recording. But again, overall, I think MotoGP 25 is a good step in the right direction. It would have been nice to see a really good battle going on here with Pecco Bagnaia. It would have been good to see a historics mode so that we do have the tracks that are classic tracks in MotoGP history that we can use. It's good that we've seen the return of Bruno. We've got very bargy with Pecco Bagnaia there. So it's good to see a return of that. Overall, I would say that this game is... I'd say it's worth getting. If you're already into MotoGP and you know that you're going to be playing the game at some point, I'd say go for it. But again, if you want to wait for it to go on sale, you could probably do okay, because there is quite a good amount of modding community out there with MotoGP 24 that can make it look like MotoGP 25, and there's not really a huge difference. But for myself, I'm definitely going to buy it. Every time the game comes out, I'm going to be playing it anyway, and I do think that's a little bit of the problem with Milestone as well, is that they know that you're going to get it anyway. There's not a huge emphasis on them to have to change a whole lot, but hopefully that is something that does change in the future. So with that being said, let's jump into a quick race here at Qatar as Maverick Vinales and talk a little bit more about MotoGP. So I think visually MotoGP is incredible this year. I've heard a few people that don't like the textures and that kind of thing, but it does feel like they've rescanned the tracks. The tracks look very new, the tarmac looks new, and well, good sort of emphasis on the racing line, which also allows you to sort of use your aids a little bit. Like if you're using the telemetry and all that kind of stuff and trajectory, excellent, use it, not a problem at all. Do what you need to do to get used to the game and then slowly start taking those aids off. I think that's the best way to go about learning a game like MotoGP, but I do think with GP25 the entry level is a lot easier. It's a lot more seamless transition from your riding aids to MotoGP in pro physics. Again, I think the ride height is better refined in this game. It doesn't feel as clunky, it feels better. The other thing that I'm absolutely astonished with that doesn't happen in this game anymore is the incessant wheeling. Every time you're on the power in MotoGP 24, you were basically front wheel was in the air. And that doesn't happen so much in this. Even if you run at a lower anti-wheelie, it will pop up occasionally within reason. So I think the physics have become more realistic, which is an excellent step and what the game is wanting to move forward to. And for me as a player of definitely the last 5 games consistently, it's good. It feels good, it feels realistic. You still get a sense of depth and understanding of the bike with the brakes and the characteristics of the acceleration and how it feels mid-corner. The other thing I'm also incredibly happy that they've done is they've added the visual damage. So sometimes if you put the damage on in your race modes, your wings are going to go missing if you go barreling into the side of another rider, as this screenshot for this video would have shown. So that is something that you do have to contend with, although I haven't felt much difference in the physics between when the wings are on or when the wings are off. In most cases, I've actually kind of found myself going faster without the wings, so, you know, go figure. But it feels exactly the same, which I think is a bit of a missed opportunity, considering that I feel like in Pro, maybe they should start throwing in elements of what actually happens in the racing, which is, you know, you lose a wing, the bike's characteristics are different, you have to deal with that, you have to deal with it as a racer, you have to work, whoa, it's big wheelie there, you have to work on understanding and adapting to what the conditions are around you. With that being said, I haven't tested out the flag to flag. It is also good to see that there is a pit limiter now, so you don't have to worry about getting penalties from going into the pit lane and speeding. I think that's a really good addition, probably something that could have even just been added as an update in GP24. So that's good. Those little things are just little improvements in the game that make your engagement with the game a little bit better, makes the game feel a bit more holistic as a package. The other thing that I will be interested to see at a later date is how tyre wear actually works, and whether the soft tyres and harder tyres do actually have a realistic advantage. And this is where I think it would be interesting, because we know that in games like GP bikes, you do have to adjust the pressure, and the pressure is something that has been a big talking point in MotoGP, particularly with the winglets and the current tyre manufacturer. So I think it would be good to see in this game if you had like a pro mode that enables you to be able to put on tyre pressure and being able to manage your tyre pressure during the race, because I think that is a very real aspect of the races, and it does seem to affect it. A lot of the riders will talk about that their front tyre pressure went through the roof. You know, just something that's like a little warning on the dash and the HUD and everything like that. I think that would be a really cool addition for riders that are looking at that level of, or players that are looking for that level of immersion into what MotoGP is all about and the realistic aspect of the sport. Again, sounds are incredible. They've definitely reworked the sounds, and the bikes sound different, they sound distinct, and they sound gloriously pretty darn close to what they sound like in real life. Very gutsy, very loud, very impressive sound. So I think a massive 10 out of 10 to the Milestone team for that. Visuals, I'm going to say, yes, it is good to have the visuals in line with what MotoGP is doing visually on their overall broadcast and everything, so I'd probably give it a good 8 out of 10 on its visual. Physics, look, there's going to be people out there that are going to go, oh, you know, the physics aren't as good as this, or the physics were really good back then. And I guess what it comes down to is you've got to have some level of enjoyment in the game, and this is a game. It's never going to be as realistic as games like GP bikes are, so do keep that in mind. But overall, I'd give this a solid 8 or 9 out of 10. I think it's a good addition to the GP family, and let me know in the comments what you guys think about this game. Let us know what you think about the physics. Is it something you enjoy? Is it something you don't like? What would you have liked to have seen added to the game? Do you feel that it missed on some big opportunities for directions in maybe career mode or in any aspect of the gameplay? I thought we might be able to take a win there as we're coming to the line to get a podium in Qatar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Hello, if you enjoyed this video and you're enjoying watching this little snippet, make sure to check out the career modes coming up, or any of the other videos here on CS38 Racing's YouTube channel. So glad that you stuck around to want to spend a little bit of extra time with us. Enjoy the content, stay safe, have fun, and check out the videos. Keep playing motorbike games. See you around.